Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Scott Church from Category 1 Games, and we are here to talk about the top 3 most endangered CCGs or TCGs of 2024. When we say endangered, we mean likely to go out of print. We're fresh off MetaZoo's closure, which I think a lot of people saw coming. We're like, what could also end this year or in the next 18 months? So we have technically 4 games, and this might not be in 2024, but these are games where, unless there's some structural issues that are kind of resolved, they're in trouble. And so our first one, Scott, do you want to talk about our first one, which might be controversial, but
oh man, let's see how much heat we can get for this. Let's talk about Flesh and Blood, baby. Let's go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a fun one because this game took off during the 2020 pandemic. It looked to be very short supplied with who was a Channel Fireball, seemed to have like some sort of exclusivity or got a lot of product when there wasn't a lot available. There were all these chase cards that were worth a lot of money in the packs. It was almost like a lottery system. Good luck if you get the scratch ticket that works. And it got a lot of popularity. It built up. The gameplay is supposed to be really good. They've held big tournaments for it. But my question for all these games is there a local scene that is going to keep building, feeding the system, bringing in new players? Or are you just getting the professional poker card players playing in your events, hoping for the big scratch-offs?
I think the other thing about Flesh and Blood, it came out in 2019, so late 2019, and it's facing one of our rules we've talked about before, which you have 3 years to beat the big 3. So they're a little past 3 years now, but what are you doing in year 4, 4.5 year to make your game interesting and unique? You're just going to get buried by Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! If you don't do, and now with Orcana as well. And so this is already a pretty tight market, and you have the entry of Orcana, which at this point people seem to like, and it sells and it moves. Star Wars Unlimited. So the finite number of gamers is shrinking even more. And I think Flesh and Blood has the most to lose from a game like Star Wars Unlimited grabbing people's attention, especially with distribution issues. My understanding is Flesh and Blood is only on TCG Player. You can't pick it up in local game stores, which just seems like a boneheaded move. I know maybe it's felt like a great thing to announce to stockholders or shareholders or something, but it seems like you're killing a local scene, right?
Yeah, unless you're Tesla, I don't know how you can pull that off where you don't have, local car dealerships selling it for you. And that's basically what retail stores are, card stores are is the car dealership for these games. And so if no one's there to test drive it, how does it survive?
Yeah, so that's our first game is Flesh and Blood. I hear it's fun to play. Just speaking frankly, I live in a big area and there's lots of people to play Magic with. You can be able to play some of these dead card games I talk about, but I've not found a single person to play Flesh and Blood with. And hey, if you're in the DC area, hit me up. I'll play with you, man.
Teach Matt how to play. Get him some decks.
I have a friend even sent me a 2-player starter. I'm like, please, someone play with me, please. So that's the first thing on our list is Flesh and Blood, and I think they're just hitting a period with. They need to evolve, or they're going to hit the bins in your store in the next 18 months. The next game on our list is Final Fantasy TCG. This game should be having a moment right now with the release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, whatever it's called. It should be having a moment, but it's not, because Square Enix, for some reason, just hates the game. They just hate the game, where they refuse to market it. They refuse to get it out to local game stores. They refuse to demo it. It's hard to even get in North America. And I understand there's other markets, but North America is the single largest card market in the world. You can talk about Europe, you can talk about Asia, but the fact is the biggest playing scenes are in the US. And if you're not even hitting this market at all, it seems like a huge missed opportunity. I also think that the Final Fantasy franchise, they've spread themselves a little thin with the new Magic set coming out, I believe in 2025. So you're undercutting your own product. You're also kind of telling it, hinting hey, we're going to have our own Final Fantasy trading card game, or we're just going to do a Magic Universes Beyond thing. I don't know. Why play our game when you get a Cloud Commander set in a year and a half? That sounds cool. I'll buy it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Magic ones. I'll probably check that out. It'll have really cool artwork, I'm guessing, and hit up the characters that we care about. Give me Final Fantasy 6, 7, and 8, and that that's really where I'm at. with it.
Right.
And, they kind of did that a little bit in the game. But yeah, they just have done such a poor job with it, and it had so much potential. The card stock is beautiful. The cards feel good. They have like a matte finish to them. They basically don't ever get scratched. They look so good, and yet they've just dropped the ball. It's like it's like marketing 101. They just don't have any understanding of it. It's really strange. I don't know if it's a cultural difference, a Japanese company trying to do something here in America where they don't want to take advice or spend money on it, and they'll take whatever they can get from it.
Right.
The thing that stands out to me about them is their release schedule has gotten very long between sets, and they've kind of gotten quiet between sets on when the next one's coming out. And I think there's one that just came out or is about to come out, and before that, people were like, "Is the game dead? What's happening with it?" And then they announced, "Oh, we have a new set coming out." And so when a company gets like that, I mean, we saw that with Decipher. It gets really sketchy when you start hitting weird, months long release schedules, and you don't even know if it's coming or not.
Right. And that's where sort of even community moderators like hire an intern to go out and be like, everything's great, guys. Let's leak some cards. I mean, there's no preview cards that I see. It's just, and they've done a little bit. I think they added in some autographed cards. You can like autograph Yuffie. I'm like, I don't know who's autographing Yuffie. Is it the voice actress? I mean, she's a CGI character, but it doesn't really hit the same way as like having an autograph, whatever, Anakin Skywalker from Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Like tops. So that's the second one on our list, Final Fantasy TCG. Really cool game. I mean, all these games are interesting games. It's just a tight market, and it's really easy to get strangled by the big three, as well as stores just having a finite amount of space in their shelves. And like, I'm not going to stock this. I'm going to choose to stock Star Wars Unlimited, and the rest of the story writes itself.
Well, so we're going to get into this next one here, but I was talking to a store one time when I was traveling saying, "Hey, did you guys carry Final Fantasy?" They're like, it was popular for the first 2 or 3 sets, and then Dragon Ball Super released, and it basically took our whole crowd of Final Fantasy players, and they all went to that game, and it didn't recover up until sets like 10, 11, 12, where people came back to it, and there's a little bit of interest, but is it too little, too late? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for a game having 20 sets out, and I think it's 20 or 21 sets, and to not really have a tournament scene, a player scene, people wondering if it's going to die, it just doesn't feel good. But this is a good segue into our final one. So this is a sort of shared spot for Dragon Ball Super and the Universe My Hero Academia CCG. So I think there's always a threat with anime CCGs that people are a bit fickle with animes. There's a lot that come, there's a lot that go. There's also a lot like Vice Farts, which is just like, whatever, cute girls in short skirts. Like there's not as much of a broad appeal, and they tend to be way clunkier to play. And you don't see people playing. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the one exception here, and I guess Pokemon you could call an anime, but anime CCGs really come and go all the time. What'd you say about Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball? It's like every 3 years is a new version of it.
Yeah, I mean, and it was run by Score at first. I mean, it's like every 3 years they die off and they're resurrected in some way. And the fan base is rabid for it. They love it. And they get frustrated that it keeps relaunching in different ways. And they, sometimes the rules relate to the old game and they can kind of use their old cards, but they can't. Like, there's a lot of things with that. I mean, you're seeing this with the universes, which My Hero Academia, where it used to be Universal Fighting System, and that game switched hands a few different times. And they had different licenses like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Mega Man, SNK, like all these different properties. And then it gets bought out and changed to universes. And it's My Hero Academia, which is a popular anime. But it's, how long does that last? I think Weiss Schwartz is probably the best example of a company that does, boutique releases every few months of anime, popular anime. They sell out, they do well. Old sets go up in value. There's not a lot of singles market, I don't believe, because they kind of come in like a pre-constructed set. So it's kind of a unique format, but they do well. But I just wouldn't invest heavily in any of these anime games. I mean, One Piece is doing really well right now. How long does that last? Does that do we go on a 3-year cycle and the game's kind of done by then? It'll be really interesting to see with a lot of these anime games, how long they stay on the shelves.
I mean, One Piece has an advantage where there's a live action show. And, whether you like the first season or not, they're making a second season from my understanding. So there's at least going to be this organic engagement from people being like on Netflix. Oh, this is on. What's this? And then they stumble down the path of having a hoard of cards someday. But
the live action of that was much better than Death Note, by the way. I can tell you that. I don't know if you watched
that card game. That's an excellent show.
The cartoon was great on that.
Yeah. I want to say with the Dragon Ball Super, we were talking about this before the show. Like, is Dragon Ball Super still around? And then I think they're relaunching it at the end of this month. At the end of February, they're relaunching this again. And I'm like, guys, this is the problem: is gamers feel taken advantage of because their old stuff isn't compatible, or only some of it is. The mechanics change. You got to learn a new game or not learn a new game. It feels like a money grab a little bit relaunching it. I think it's going from Dragon Ball Supers to Dragon Ball Z Fusion Masters or something.
Yeah, it's constantly changing. This new Dragon Ball version is coming out, and I know there's a lot of excitement for it. But man, like, how many times are they going to do this to their crowd? I don't know if it's compatible with the last game or if this is kind of like the next kind of like block in it or what. But I know the card and the packaging looks a little bit different and whatnot. Yeah, it's just crazy what they're doing to the poor Dragon Ball Z fans.
Yeah.
There's one game that I'm kind of excited about. I think it just has its third set released. It's called Grand Archive, and it's an anime looking style game, but it's like its own. It feels a lot like late 90s Squaresoft games where it has that kind of art style of anime, kind of Chrono Trigger mixed with like if you remember the Sega CD version of like anime games, it kind of has that look, and I really like that style of artwork, and so I'm actually kind of interested in checking that game out. Unfortunately, like we've said, when there's not a player base, how long can games last? And I don't know of any player base here in Utah for the game.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up there. I hope none of these games go out of print, but the fact is, it's real. Things don't last forever. And the life cycle of a game, if you make it past 5 years, that's a good sign usually, because usually the 5-year hump is really the big one of, have you figured out distribution? Have you figured out licensing? Is it license being renewed? Have you marketed the game? I mean, the Dragon Ball game has been terribly marketed. A lot of these games are kind of poorly marketed. I think Flesh and Blood is not greatly marketed either. They basically live online, which is not a great place for a game to live, right? You need to have a tactile experience. You have an in-person experience, a local community forming, and I don't really know if Flesh and Blood has that, at least not in the United States. But that's all the time we have for today. Scott, thanks so much for tuning in, man, and hanging out. I love doing videos with you.
Thanks, Matt. It's been fun. Appreciate it, man.
All right. We'll catch everybody next time.